KCHW 102.7. There's Boston Rock and Roll Band. It's Scott and Val in the morning, but we have special guests now. We're going to kind of stray away from the music and the goofiness and get our reports. And they come in every quarter to do this. It's Mayor Dorothy Knauss and City Administrator Mike Frizzell. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
It's good to be here.
All right. We've got a kind of a list of items that we can go through to find out what's happening in the city, things that are going around this summer. Now, one thing I don't think I saw on the list that I had like in my head to ask is what kind of problems this spring caused for roads, and that might be one that goes to Mike.
Yes.
What kind of troubles the city's having? Because I'm sure there was lots of damages.
There were more damages than normal. Every year we see the freezing and thawing in the roads, and anybody who drives by the high school knows there's a big dip there every year because the roads they're not necessarily holes in the road or ditches in the road, it's everything else that heaves around them. So that was extended this year, and then when it started to melt, the road started to break apart. So we did have more damage than normal, and we were lucky enough to get $35,000 in grant funds to do that repair, and it's got to be done before August. So we're working right now on bidding that out.
Does that come from FEMA or the state, or how does that work?
It's a state organization, Transportation Improvement Board, and they're just fantastic to work with. And they recognize that this year was the worst year in many years, so they put that funding together specifically for this year. It's not available most times. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Big help, huh?
A big help, because that would have normally come out of our standard budget, so we wouldn't have been able to do chip seal or paving or any of that work. It would have been just for emergency purposes. And so, yeah, it was a huge help to us.
All right. Splash pad. What's the splash pad?
We have been talking to the State Recreation and Conservation Office to see if there was any funding for a splash pad. You've seen them in Riverfront Park, or other cities have them, and it's a constant spray of water on flat pad, and the kids can go in and just play.
Oh, wow.
They're fairly popular, and so we found out that there is funding for those, so we're going to meet with their director tomorrow to see if there's any chance that Chewelah would qualify for one.
All right. Can you put that right in front of the radio station? No? Is that for the park?
We'll make it a close second to the park, yeah.
Well, if the Pearl Park thing doesn't work out, keep me in mind.
Okay.
Right. No, that's awesome. That'd be so fun.
Yeah, we would like to have it. We don't know where we would put it for sure yet, but we would like to have it out by 395 if we could, so that people driving through could stop with their kids, and another attraction to Chewelah.
Nice. Good thinking. Now we have to have something for them to buy when they swing in, though.
Well, there's all those food places right by there.
All right. What's going on with our local museum this year?
A group has decided to organize and form a Chewelah Historical Society, and that's being led by Dr. Paul Larson, and they're in the process right now of incorporating, and then they will actually manage our museum for us. We used to have a historical society that disbanded several years ago, and so several people met one evening. I met with them, and they are willing to take on the management of our museum. And a big shout out to Bonnie Rail. She is organizing the volunteers for this summer to actually man the museum.
Now, what was I know there was some work going on before that Don McLaughlin was doing, but that was through the county, correct?
He was working, I think, with the Stevens County Historical Society on the Indian Agency.
Yeah.
And that work will continue.
Because they were bringing some locals here into the studio, and we were, interviewing some of the elders of Chewelah and asking them about the history.
Yes.
And recording that for posterity. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of on pause right now. So I hope that picks back up. So I'll have to get in touch with Paul on that and see if we can keep that going.
Yeah, that would be good.
All right. So in the past, was it the city kind of running it before?
That's another thing that's funded out of our current expense fund. And so we don't have a lot of funds to run the museum. We've relied on volunteers for years to actually man the museum.
Maybe this will be kind of the attention that it needs, takes it to maybe the next level or something with the group managing it.
I was impressed with this group. They are very proactive about getting everything cataloged and organized and have good records.
All right. All right, sidewalks. I've heard we've brought this up several times over the past couple of years, and I always have to ask the question: where's Ehorn Lane and what's going on?
Ehorn Lane is one of the primary arterials that wraps around the backside of the high school and then down to Lincoln. So a lot of the traffic coming down Flowery Trail will turn and go through Ehorn. A lot of school traffic goes by there. It's the primary walking route in town. So they're now going to have Ehorn Lane's going to be a complete new road, similar to what we did on Main Street, with a sidewalk and curb and pedestrian lighting and everything down Ehorn. And then all new sidewalks. We've gotten a lot of grant funding over the last few years to repair or replace sidewalks. So there's some sections on Lincoln that are already new, but those that aren't, we're going to put new sidewalks all the way up to Stevens Street on Lincoln as a part of that project. And then next year, our hope is to get approximately $1 million to repave Lincoln all the way from Ehorn Lane up to Stevens Street. So it'll be that primary arterial will be brand new.
Isn't it horrible that it costs that much money to make that short of road?
It is what it is. We have to deal with it, and that's the reason we focus on streets like Ehorn Lane and Lincoln, and we've done Main now, which is the primary arterial, and in the past Stevens Street. So those affect the most people possible. So that's the reason we choose them, and we can't control the costs. We have to pay the prevailing wage, and we have to go through a lot of hoops and a lot of red tape to get the grant funding to get it done.
And I don't think people realize how much pavement costs.
Oh, it's insane.
It is.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. So if they think, and I'm just throwing that out to protect you guys. Don't think that's local government or anything. It doesn't matter where you are. If you want to lay some pavement or make a road, it's ridiculously expensive.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I used to joke about the 2 mile when they first did the bridge out of Spokane and the 4 lanes. It was only 2 miles of highway, and it was like $770 million because of that bridge and stuff. And so I was talking. It was back when I worked in KXLY, and I was talking about how it took them 3 years to finish 2 miles of highway, and they were saying at that time they were talking about them making it all the way to Canada at that time. And I said, if the same construction company does it, it's going to take them like 160 years and $2 quadrillion to get it there. If it takes that amount of time just to do 2 miles. So yeah, pretty expensive and time consuming.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the other project that so Ehorn Lane we're hoping to put that out to bid in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. 395 sidewalks are already out to bid. Bauman Brothers was the lowest responsible bidder on that, so they'll be starting that work in August. So when Chautauqua was over, they'll be ramping up, and we'll get new sidewalks down 395 from King Street south to the McDonald's site.
Well, that helps local contractors too, right?
Yes.
That's a good deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I know you and some of the our city officials went to a conference. Tell me about that.
Yes, every year the Association of Washington Cities has an annual conference, and this year it was in Vancouver. I was there all week because I'm on their board of directors, and we had meetings outside of the actual conference. And then on Tuesday, Mike and Sharon Ludwig drove down for the actual conference. Was Wednesday, Thursday, and half of Friday. So it's basically a lot of different resources there's workshops, training. For instance, we have Steve DiGiulio, who's a well-known municipal attorney and has been advising cities for years, and he always gives a wonderful workshop on, the separation of powers doctrine, open public meetings, Public Records Act, anything that he thinks is crucial for the cities to know. And then I moderated a workshop on homelessness for youth and young adults in Washington State. So there was standing room only in that workshop. Then there are financial workshops, and you just have to pick which workshop you think is important to your town. And then I also chair the Small Cities Advisory Committee I co-chair with Jerry Phillips, who's the mayor of Long Beach. He's responsible for the western side of the state. I'm responsible for the eastern side of the state. And so we talk about issues that are important to cities under 5,000.
All right.
And what we can do maybe with the legislature and what needs to happen in these cities.
All right, in a conference like that, what do you come away with as some of the top issues facing cities under 5,000?
Well, one of the huge issues right now is the state passing a budget, because we're afraid that they have to pass it by this Friday or government shuts down. They're in their third session. So what we're afraid of, and what our lobbyists are afraid of, is that at the last minute, in order to avoid the government shutdown, they're going to start snatching things from the city. State shared revenues like the sales tax, not sales tax, the liquor profits, things like that they share with us on a per capita basis. We're afraid they're going to start decreasing those things. The Public Works Trust Fund, they gutted that a few years ago from cities. So we're just hoping that they don't take anything more from us.
Wow, that's kind of scary, huh?
It is.
And totally out of your control.
Totally out of my control.
And then that causes problems, of course, for our local budget, I'm sure. Right?
Exactly. One of the things that the state has, one bill that is up that we hope fails, is the state has always paid 20% of the left, that's law enforcement and firefighters, pensions. So in your retirement fund, the employee pays so much, the city pays so much, and the state has paid 20% of those retirement funds. And they have a bill to make the cities pay 50% and the state pay none. And that would cost the city, I checked with our clerk, that would cost the city on this year's wages $13,000 out of our current expense fund.
Wow, so that can throw a real wrench into things.
It sure can.
All of a sudden you think you've got your budget for the year and everything's working, and then something like that comes down and you got to try and reorganize, right?
Exactly.
All right. Anything else you want to share from that?
No, not really. It's always a time of education and always bring back new ideas. The main thing is networking with the other mayors and council members from other cities. There were 600 people there this year, so that's a lot of people.
Wow. All right. Next, you have an open forum coming up July 19th. What's that?
Yes, the council decided last year that they would attempt every quarter to have an open forum. The first one that we had was a listening session. Then the public said to us, we really want to just talk to the council and have them talk back to us. So the next one we had was an interchange. It's just an open session. We take care of the things we need to take care of for the meeting, but then we just open it up. Anyone from the floor can talk about anything they want to that's a city matter. The council can talk back and forth with them. And so we haven't done that since, I think, February, so it's time to do another one.
Okay, that's coming up July 19th.
Yes.
All right. That, me and Mike went round and round about this a couple times. Mostly joking, though, but the noise ordinance.
Yeah, the noise ordinance. Well, there's some misconceptions, but the reason the noise ordinance came up is because we've always had a noise ordinance, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. It got to the point where it wasn't effective and it wasn't enforceable any longer. So the people who called about dogs barking all night long, or neighbors playing their music, at level 10 at 2 o'clock in the morning, our police officers show up and they do their best to stop that activity from happening, but there's no way to enforce, or there was no way to enforce the ordinance that was in place. Basically what we'd hear from the prosecutor is there's no way to measure whether it was too loud or not. I mean, it was...
Too subjective.
It didn't allow our officers to use any common sense. So what we had to do is we had to put a level of what the noise was in order to enforce it. So a lot of the activities are exactly the same that were in the old ordinance. But we got a little more detailed. One thing that people don't understand is the state law actually sets what a public disturbance level is, a decibel rating. What the city set is actually less restrictive than what the state law is. So that's one misconception. We didn't make it any worse than what the state law already was. And then there's a lot of exceptions that got put into place so that some of the activities that everybody takes on or does are protected. And so I got just a quick list. The first one is fire alarms. Second one is emergency equipment, basically related to health, safety, and welfare of the community.
So, Mike, when I was talking about my generator during a long-term power outage or something like that was okay.
That's
that
number
was my
2.
concern.
Yeah.
Okay.
The third is sounds created by yard maintenance. It's got a lot of comments on yard maintenance. And this is discussed in detail and extensively by the council and legal. We went through every scenario we could think of. I don't know we thought of all of them, but there was a lot of discussion on this. So what we decided was yard maintenance could occur anytime during daylight hours. We figured people probably didn't need to mow their lawn at night. So, any weed eater, the blowers, the leaf blowers, anything related to yard maintenance, including washing your deck off with a pressure washer, is exempt in the noise ordinance. Any snow removal equipment on the next one. So any time of the day or night, snow removal equipment is exempt from the noise ordinance. Motorized vehicle, those to protect those who work different shifts, basically ingress and egress to your property, warming the vehicle up any hour of the day, doesn't matter what the noise level is. If it's a big diesel truck, you have the right to warm that up when you're getting ready to leave at 3 o'clock in the morning for shift work. Another thing was they were going to shut Chautauqua down. We hear these things.
And I'm sorry, I might have perpetuated that by making jokes
Maybe a
on the
little bit.
radio.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thanks, Scott.
Sorry.
That's all right. We knew they were jokes.
Okay.
I think you mentioned margaritas too on the deck.
Yeah. My blender's illegal.
So officially sanctioned parades and public events also exempt. Also amplification equipment related to items like that. So it basically, and then the last one, I heard a wonderful rumor that we being the city, did this specifically to drive business out of town. It's ridiculous. The last exemption actually protects all business activity in that decibel range. So we did it to protect the public, and we did it to protect those people who had problems with neighbors, and we wanted to be able to act on that to provide peace to the public rather than having to say, hey, it's out of our control, we can't do anything about it. So that was the purpose behind it.
And you kind of explained to me they have a dB device that senses how loud things are. I've seen these in radio stations before. Yeah. We don't have one, but it'll measure how loud the audio is, and there's a certain range they do that from, the edge of the property. Right?
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Scott. That's key, because people who say, well, my dishwasher is 70 decibels or whatever. Well, it doesn't matter, because it will be taken from the complainant's, the property line of the complainant. So somebody can't complain about whatever it is. There's so many exemptions here that it's hard to imagine what it would be.
Let's use that Scott likes to run a jackhammer at 2 a.m.
Okay, that's a pretty easy one. Nice, Scott. So somebody across town can't say, I can hear Scott's jackhammer running, and get you shut down. Okay, that's a bad one, right? You're going to get shut down. But it's going to be taken from the complainant's yard. So somebody can't complain from 5 blocks away and have somebody's music they can barely hear, have that shut down.
Okay.
So, but if you're a neighbor and it's very loud, you can go right to that complainant's yard on the sideline and then measure that noise.
So you can come up to my curb and say, yes, the jackhammer is louder than 70 dB or whatever.
From your property, we would measure the level 10 blocks away.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I thought that our Chief Burrows had a really good example. He compared it to the speed limit. So first of all, you post the speed limit, 25 miles an hour, but you have to have some way to measure that they're going faster than that, and that's the use of radar. So unless you can't just look at the car and say, yeah, I think they were going 35 or 40. Sure. You have to be able to measure it, and that's what the prosecutor said. Provide
the proof. So.
Right.
Excellent. Well, let's move on. Talk about the new drug canine, Rebel.
Right. Rebel is a star. He has excelled in all of his training, far above even the other canines. So he is through with his training now. He's back on the street. He is fully trained in narcotics. He is trained in patrol, to assist in patrol. And the other day I got a little blip of him getting in a helicopter. And he's trained underwater. So he's well trained to aid our police force.
Wow. Has he got to make a bust yet?
He has. He has made several busts.
Many, yeah.
Really?
We have taken many drugs off the streets of Chewelah because of Rebel.
Already?
Very
nice,
Yeah,
very nice.
Very, very effective.
Excellent. All right, and building permit activity. What's going on around town this summer with that?
A lot. Yeah,
Good.
On top of
That's
being
good.
city administrator and we contract out planning, but I deal with all the planning up front and kind of organize it. So, but on top of that is the building official stuff, and it's been, I wouldn't say easy in the past, but we've only had on average 1 to 2 homes per year being built, and a few remodels. It's usually about 20 permits per year, but this year we already have 5 new homes, 2 more being talked about, and 2 large business activities they're talking about going in. So it's more of a full-time job. So it's been a little bit difficult to juggle, but we're doing our best to get that done. But it's a lot more activity than what we've seen in the past. So people are really starting to pick things up.
And that's like a good economic sign for people and for the town, right?
It is.
Excellent, yeah.
It is.
Very nice. And then I hate to rehash this and bring it up again, but I saw a little bit of it in the newspaper, and I've heard rumors on the streets. What is going on with that swimming pool?
Okay, well, a citizen came and requested time from the council to look at the pool again. The council gave 30 days for that assessment. At the time that we closed the pool, I was a city council member, and I had a vote in that issue. As mayor, I do not have any vote in that. So the council will decide what they're going to do with that issue.
All right. So basically they're just reassessing it, seeing if there is something that can be done that's cost-effective, that kind of stuff?
I think they are waiting to see what comes forth from the report before they make any inclination of what they would do.
All right. All right. Eventually, hopefully this either gets solved or goes away, right? Because I know there's kind of a thing is we'd have to get rid of that one to be able to get a grant to get a new one, right?
Well, I don't know that we'd be able to get a grant, depending on what we wanted. At the time that I was on the committee back in 2013, we explored all options. We explored grants. We explored grants for fixing this pool. One of the caveats of that grant was if we got it to repair this pool, if it was even feasible, we had to operate the pool in perpetuity. And that didn't make a lot of sense at that time. I suggested that if citizens were interested, that they form a foundation like the city of Centralia did and raise money for an aquatic center. That didn't fly because that's a lot of work for someone to do.
Yeah. And a lot of money to build an aquatic center, and pools are ridiculously expensive.
More small cities are closing their pool. I think that, the last year we operated, the chamber kicked in $22,000 or $25,000. Kettle Falls now, I think, has had to close their pool for the same reason. They're expensive to operate, and when funds are limited, that's a pretty easy one.
And it goes beyond just we think about our city pool and stuff, but I know people that own hotels, motels, places in Spokane. Trying to keep a pool going is very expensive for any business. To get a new one built is ridiculously expensive. And I won't name the name, but I know somebody has a motel in Spokane, and they were talking about how when they built it, they had to put in the handicapped accessible portion, which I understand in a public pool. You got to have that. But in a privately owned pool, I would think that should be, the state gets its nose into too many things. That should be left up to the owner of the business. And so he had to put in this handicapped lift in his pool, and he said the pool's been operating now for 4 years. The tarp has never came off. Yeah. So he had to spend $150,000 for a lift that's never been used because the state said so.
Unfortunately, the money to operate a pool comes out of the same money that funds the police department, the fire department, and the street department. And by law, those are our top priorities as elected officials of a city. So it's interesting to note that in 2012, the city realized that they needed more money, so they increased the swimming pool rates. And from 2011 to 2012, the income dropped about $3,500.
Wow.
From swimming fees.
Wow.
So,
All right.
okay.
All right. Anything else we missed you guys would like to talk about?
That was pretty complete.
All right. That was a good list.
All right.
Well, thank you coming in for the quarterly report. Mayor Dorothy Knauss, City Administrator Mike Frizzell, thank you both so much for coming back.
Thanks for
Scott.
having us, Scott.
All right.